Marc Verbeem, welcome and thank you for joining us today.
Thank you very much, Debbie.
Okay, the topic of today's conversation is the TRAPIS technology. But
Yeah,
we've spoken about this before, but I want to rewind. I want to go back to basics. I want to find out the nuances, the what, the why, and the how of TRAPIS, how this product has developed, where it is right now. And, importantly, the switch to pigment inks is what's at the heart of this technology.
yeah,
And pigment, of course, a huge, huge important part of the future of printing. It's still a huge, it's a huge part of the analog world. I think it's 70 or 80% of the analog world. So the implication here for pigments, but using a transfer technique, are really, really interesting. So that's where I'd like to dive in.
okay, perfect. Happy
Oh,
to talk about that.
that's great. No, it's really great. Thank you so much for sharing your time today. So, Marc, could you give me a quick introduction to yourself? I know that you're the supervisor of product management over at
Yeah,
Mimaki in the Netherlands, actually.
yeah,
Yeah, could we dive into that and also a quick roundup of Mimaki, advanced printing solutions for anybody that isn't aware of who Mimaki are?
okay,
Great.
okay, perfect. Well, myself, I've been in the business in the print business for quite a lot of time for my career.
Hmm.
I joined Mimaki 2 years ago, and my career started basically in printing with digital printing, and not per se on wide format, but on other products.
So you're definitely a print addict then.
Yes, yes, I am. I breathe ink, I would say.
It's so funny, isn't it? We all enter this world and somehow it becomes part of your DNA. And very few people leave the industry.
True,
It's
true.
fun. It's
Yeah,
really, really fun. It's
yeah.
great. Okay.
And for Mimaki, for people that are not so familiar with Mimaki, this year it is a party time. We exist 50 years. So quite a long time, and Mimaki stands for the fact that we are an innovator. We want to bring new things, new technologies to the market, and of course, for a lot of ours is creating culture where everybody, when we can make full use of talents and things like that, and individuality to become even better.
It's so important, isn't it? The culture of any business and how its innovation
It,
it
it is, it
evolves.
is.
It's at the heart of everything, isn't it? Success.
Yeah. No, I totally agree. If the innovation nowadays is more and more important, especially, it doesn't mean right away that your innovation has to be a product that sells like crazy,
Yeah.
but innovation can also be something to show that the world that you're thinking about
Yeah.
other things,
Yeah.
and you're innovating in a way that per se not looking at selling a printer, but maybe doing something on the sustainability side.
But it's signposting to the industry as well, isn't it? It's thought leadership. It's
Ye-
product R&D. It's so important, which is a great segue into our first question. Actually, Trappist is absolutely what you've just identified. Really, can we take a deep dive in here then, and let's explore Trappist
Yeah.
with the first question, I guess. Why was it developed?
Well, looking at the whole market, where we use the whole printing market,
Hmm.
we still use a tremendous type of water, for example. If you look, years ago, going from analog to digital,
Yeah.
uh, we use so much water in pre-treatment, drying, steaming, things like that. So we thought about looking into a process is saying, hey, can we develop anything that is cleaner, that is more sustainable, that does not require to pre-treat any materials outside the polyester, but like wool or nylon or cotton, things like that. That's basically how the whole process started a couple of years ago already.
It's a huge space, isn't it, really? And I think early in digital, what we very much did was we recreated analog technologies using inkjet, didn't we?
Yeah. Yeah.
No,
Well, if you look at even at the industry nowadays is still so much is still done analog. So much of the fabrics are dyed in the Far East, and then environment. Look at the buckets of water colored by paint are going thrown in the river and things like that.
yeah,
So
absolutely.
we have still a long way to go to make it
Yeah,
actually. More sustainable. But this is a first step where we say you do not require pre-treatment,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
and I think that's a huge step where we say instead of doing pre-treatment on, I would say on you have machines where you can do pre-treatment on board already, where they do the water and everything. They have a recirculation system to clean it, but those are the very expensive machines, and not every customer can afford a machine like this.
I think that's the interesting point there as well. Not every customer jumps in at industrial.
No,
They
no,
start they start with machinery that's, I don't know what, 28, 30 meters per hour, that
yeah,
kind of thing. And, if you look at the early success stories of digital, they were farms. They were farms of lots of machines,
yeah,
people organically growing their production. And I think that's what's so interesting to me about Trappist as well, is it's the way that it can organically help people conversion to new markets, really. Did you have, when this product was first thought about, did you have target markets and applications in mind?
yes,
Yeah,
yes,
okay,
because
what would they be?
well, if you look at because the process is looks so much like sublimation. The
Yeah,
first thing what you think about is like, okay, anything in this world of sublimation would be suitable, which is true in one way. The other way is of course sublimation is a lot of polyester world, polyester and blends of polyester. So we thought about that market is already very mature. People are using it, technology being used, like you said, starting with low square meters and now running a couple of hundred square meters. So we thought about, okay, that is one part where Trappist is not going to be helpful because these customers are already in this market doing their work. So we have to look at other applications, and basically looking at applications, for example, home decoration
yes,
is a very big thing, of course, where you can do the furniture,
yeah,
curtains, tablecloth, cushions, bedding, carpets, things about that would be the first thing what you talk about.
hmm
Uh, and especially, again, just the pure fabric that you take. We see companies moving on, even saying, okay, we need to look at, cotton can be in eco cotton or things like that, but they already say, no, we have to move on to hemp because that is a more cleaner way. We don't have to grow so much plants.
yeah.
We're moving into hemp, for example. So the market is helping us also, of course, of applications.
I guess as well, the growth of customization and personalization here as well is a big differentiator here, isn't it, really, from people who can't go down the conventional, taking decor as a sector. It's difficult to go to a conventional decor manufacturer whose minimum volume might have been 2,000 meters. It might be 100 or 200 meters now. If you went to a traditional manufacturer, a traditional mill, and asked them, gave them a fabric, hemp, for example, and said, I want to print this design on it, you're going outside of their production parameters.
Yeah,
It's very unlikely you're going to be able to source that at an affordable cost in order
yeah,
to pass that on and grow your brand. And I think that's where, these innovative technologies like Trappist are really going to unlock new markets and new
yeah.
applications. I think, Mark, I think we should dive straight in here to Trappist because it differs so much from other print applications, particularly dye sublimation. I think
Mhm.
sometimes people get confused and they're like, well, hey, hang on a minute. You're not using dye sub inks, you're using pigment inks. So
Yeah.
I think it would be really great just to simplify and just explain what inks are printing onto which consumables and how that
Okay.
transfer takes
Yeah.
place, really,
Yeah.
and onto what.
Okay. Well, if you and think what we saw on when we first had TRAPIS at Vespa in Amsterdam,
Uh-huh.
um, it was for a lot of people walked by actually thinking, oh, this is another dye sublimation
Yeah.
solution because it is a printer, it is a calendar that is attached to it or side by it,
Yeah.
and so people thinking, okay, oh yeah, walk by, this is not a dye sub, where the actual process and the ink setup and things like that is different. You know, when you talk about dye sublimation, the whole thing about dye sub is that when you print it, you go to a calendar, it heats up and the ink becomes a gas and penetrates the material basically.
Yep.
You know, and then when it cools down, the pores and things like that are closing, where therefore you don't feel anything on your fabric.
Uh-huh.
Now, the disadvantage of this technology is that you need, when you want to use it, anything outside your polyester, your blend, you need like pre-coated materials. So the customer needs to acquire material that has a coating on there, or he needs to invest in a very, very expensive machine where he can do the coating inside. But that's not very common in our market.
Yep.
So of course, we don't have the sublimation ink. We're using a pigment ink, and this pigment ink is printing in the same way as dye sublimation is printing. There's When you look at the print, there's one big difference. That's basically when you're doing dye sublimation, the ink will only be very visible and popping off when you transferred it through the calendar, and then you can really see the bright image. On pigment and with TRAPIS, you will immediately see the image appearing on the printer, and it's almost like a one-on-one. What you see on the printer
Oh,
is
really?
also what you can see on what you also have as end result on the on the fabric. Of course, a little bit depending what kind of fabric it is. Some fabric is a little bit more yellowish, things like
Yeah,
that.
yeah, yeah.
But
Especially with hemp and the new grounds that are coming through. People are very
yeah,
much going for organics and kind of
yeah,
moving away from optics, aren't they, and really bright whites.
exactly. If
Mm.
I take an organic cotton that almost looks like the good old canvas,
Mhm.
even like
Yeah,
that
yeah,
yellowish, um, and that's already a difference. We both, require temperature to transfer, or in this case with sublimation to get the inks more like a gas. But that's the I think there it stops
yeah.
where we
That's
say,
those
okay,
that.
we
Yeah,
we print on a piece of paper, which is in this case Texcol paper and not sublimation paper. So
mhm.
that's also a difference. But for the customer, for his first view, even the calendar for him looks familiar. And we had many customers when we showed samples. Oh, give that sample to me. I will use that on my own calendar, and it will work. And well, if I tell you a little bit more details about the technology in a minute, then you'll understand that that will not work. But the
Yeah,
customer is thinking, oh, this is the same process.
yeah,
This is the
exactly.
same way working.
But I think that's an important point to the next step, really, the power of partnership, because this isn't a standalone, is it? Really, this
No,
product was developed in collaboration with the paper manufacturers and with the heat transfer technologies.
yeah,
It's not singular.
no, 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 because we are very good in building printers and the technology
Mhm.
and the different kinds of ink, but in we are not a paper manufacturer, we are not a calendar manufacturer. So
Yeah.
uh, for example, the Texcol paper, which is created and made by Coldenova, and
Uh-huh.
Coldenova is a very known name in the market for dye sublimation paper,
Yeah.
and we got together and say, okay, we need something different. Can you help us? And they've been building this paper, and we had many different revisions
Yeah.
of the coating, how good, how bad. Hey, we need to improve this or that. And on top of that, we said, okay, we need a calendar that is not a normal calendar, but we need a calendar that is applying a lot of pressure
Mhm.
because we're not penetrating, but we're transferring.
Yes.
So
Creating another layer.
exactly.
Yeah.
So we have the printer that puts the ink on a special paper.
Yeah.
Then it goes to that calendar, and the calendar, the heat will release the ink. It will release the coating of the paper, but then I need to pressure it with a high pressure, and that's where the calendar comes in place. Both Cleaver and Monty, very known in this market
Yes,
for
of course. Yeah.
calendars,
Yeah.
have created a calendar that can apply 8 bar of pressure. So we are really pressing that image onto the fabric, basically.
Okay. Okay. What kind of weight of paper are we talking about here, Mark?
This is like an 110 GSM paper.
Okay.
So
All right.
it
So it's
is,
middle of the
it,
road. Yes.
yeah,
It's a
it,
good quality paper. You're not going super, super fine.
yeah. But on the fabric, basically, it is unlimited, I would say.
Yeah.
The only limitation that we have is a fabric that cannot stand the heat
Yeah.
of the calendar. I met with a person on Vespa that said, well, he was like developing some green fabric and
Yeah.
things like that, and it could only stand 120 degrees. And I said, well, that's not going to work in our solution
Yeah.
because we are roughly 140, 150 degrees for to release the ink and the coating
Yeah.
from the paper going to the fabric, up to, depending on the material, but up
Yeah.
to 200 grams. And the fabric can be very thin. We did
Mhm.
like a viscose material, very thin, but
Yeah.
we also did some vegan leather, for example.
Okay.
You would not think about it, but vegan leather made from mushrooms.
Yeah.
You know,
And
so
that's a real highlight though, isn't it, really? Those are the materials that are coming to the fore.
yeah,
And those materials also differentiate the printer. So being able to, at lower scales, being able to offer those materials into the market gives them a USP. It allows them to compete very clearly with the mass market.
yeah. No, I agree, and I think looking at the applications, it could even be some people say, okay, I'm running production, but some people are saying, hey, I'm going to use some prototyping. I
Yes.
will be able to do that 1 meter, five
Yeah.
meters, and I'm not running 100 meter from it, which is possible anyway because as I mentioned, I can print a roll on my TRAPIS printer. I can run it overnight. And in the morning, I put it on my calendar and I can do, 30 to 40 meters per hour. So I can still make production.
It's amazing because you're right at the beginning of the journey, aren't you? And
Yeah,
it's when this technology gets into the hands of the industry and the hands of the designer that you're really going to start to see it pushing boundaries. I mean,
yeah,
I've already seen the massive improvements of handle here.
yeah,
We were at hybrid event, weren't we? Not so long
yeah,
ago. When was that? It was October, I think, last year. And to see those new samples coming through in a leap from the year before, you
yeah,
have absolutely beautiful handle across a wide range of substrates and across a good range of substrates too. Lots of the staples that the industry uses, but also lots of new things coming through, lots of new biomaterials and new we have woven techniques and new
yeah.
fibers coming through. Super,
No,
super important for people to be able to access markets with those. It
no, I
really
think
is.
especially you're right. If we're looking at a couple of years ago when one of the first shows that we did was ITMA, and we showed it,
Yeah, I remember. Yeah.
and a lot of customers were saying, well, if this is the handling and if this is the feeling, that's not good enough for me. And like I said, overall over the time it has been improved and things like that. And right now we can actually say, okay, it is not comparable to DTF technology, for example, where you normally really feel the image.
Yeah.
Here you feel it slightly. You notice that there is something on the fabric,
Yeah.
but the feeling is much better.
But it's a
Um,
tactile sensation. It's not like that D to F sensation where you
no,
kind of,
that's
instinctively go, oh, that you've moved surfaces. It's just you can kind of feel a coating of some description, but that's no different than what you would do in analog technologies when you add different finishes at the end of the line
Yeah.
as well,
No,
to increase the GSM, the handle, the drape, to soften or to make it drape in a more rigid format for interiors.
no, I totally agree. I think also what you see with the handling, people, the first question is, of course, they ask about, okay, what is the washability,
Yeah,
durability, and things like that. The first thing we'll say, do not compare to a dye sublimation technology.
no.
We are not penetrating the materials, we are on top of the materials, and it is comparable to any other pigment solutions that we have
Which
or
is,
in the market.
I think, a key point there as well is something that, you probably haven't even explored. But in doing the process, in transferring in the way that TRAPIS is doing, you're also becoming more circular, because it's going to be ultimately, I mean, I know that Mimaki have some R&D going on with a project called Neochromato, which is about removing dye sublimation ink. But
Yeah,
even just take that a stage further, here you're going to be, it's a lot easier to remove the ink that you have transferred onto a transfer of some description onto this fabric than it is to have to regas this other ink and chemically take it off. So
yeah.
I think from a circularity perspective, all of this innovation is particularly really interesting for anybody looking for into the future of environmental production, really.
No, I totally
Mm,
totally agree because we are not, as you mentioned, we're not penetrating the material. We
yeah,
really are on top. So
yeah,
even if it would be, yeah, on the neochromato we use some kind of chemical, but even if we were able to use anything else, we would be able to de-ink
yeah,
in an easier way
yeah,
than we have ink that is completely penetrated by the
yeah.
in the material.
And you've got a waterless process here. No,
Yeah.
no pre-coating, no post-coating.
No, no.
And
And
that, yeah,
I think also good to mention is that even the water that is involved
mhm,
is the water that is used to create the paper.
yes,
That's basically.
yeah,
But if you look at the factories and Coldenhoven for sure is not the only one, but all the factories, Beaver, things that
yeah.
Sappi that make these kind of papers, they are already in almost circular. The
I've seen
residue
it.
of the water
Yeah,
do they clean it and reuse it again. So
yeah.
even though the paper manufacturers are using water, a lot of there is also becoming almost circular.
I was amazed. I really lucky in that I actually had a tour of the Coldenhoven factory a couple of years ago, and
Yeah,
every drop of water is managed.
yeah,
Every single one. Every single drop of water is circular.
yeah,
It's considered, it's managed throughout the whole process.
yeah,
So important in the future that all of us consider every single aspect of everything we produce. And I think for the consumer, for anybody listening to this, ask questions of your printers. Ask, how is this? Don't just buy a meter of polyester for a legging with a print on it. Ask
yeah,
how all of these things are produced and make sure that you align that to your specification. Choose
yeah.
the right production method for your product and for the end use that you have devised for your product. How have you thought about that circularity?
And I think especially with a solution like Trappist, for example, I don't have to bring all my goods from Asia anymore.
Yeah,
I can do it myself, but I can also have my sister company in the other side of the world or on the other side of Europe buying the same setup and doing the same thing and produce locally. Um, uh, Also, for a person that is operating, if you look at the old technologies, you have printers where you have belts and things like that
yes,
on there.
yeah,
There's a massive cleaning on there.
absolutely, yeah,
You
yeah.
always have to
Maintenance,
clean that.
definitely. Yeah,
Uh, Here, it's well, you clean the printer once in a while. The printer with has an automatic system also to do
mm,
stuff. But I always say, you do your daily maintenance, and that's it.
yeah,
You run, you print, and you go to your calendar, and done.
yeah, exactly.
So where you install these kind of equipment is less important, less demanding also.
I think that's the agility and efficiency, isn't it, as well, of on-demand manufacturing.
Yeah,
that's what every printer out there needs. They need that agility. They need to be able to switch from one order to the other, depending, on whatever the volume is, really,
Yeah.
without huge downtimes.
And I was saying I had a customer 2 weeks ago here, and he was of a fashion brand, and he was really looking into prototyping because
Yeah.
he has so many different fabrics that are not in production yet, but he wants to see what is the reaction if I use this on print or stuff like that. Now,
Yeah.
of course, they could do small dye sublimation printer, but that point it makes it limited. Then he has to order, 10 meters of pre-coated hemp, 10 meters of pre-coated acrylic, nylon, things like
I
that.
know. Yeah.
Yeah,
All of which has a shelf life as
yeah,
well. All of those coatings, basically, you probably get about 3 months out of them. But you might stretch it a little bit further, but you're
yeah,
really going to get 3 months shelf life out of those. And also, for me, kind of in my previous life as a manufacturer as well, one of the great things that this instigates as well is being able to buy your fabrics out on the open market,
yeah,
and at whatever volume you choose, because you're
yeah,
not having to pre-coat. And
yeah,
also, not at the other end as well, not having to use the energy or send fabrics out to be post-coated as well at
yeah.
the other side. Yeah.
And
So many benefits.
nothing is needed there basically.
Yeah.
We do sometimes, we add some of the materials more like a silk material.
Yeah.
You feel it's a little bit stiff of the coating, things like that. If you dip it into the water or wash it one time, the feeling is normal again.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. And I think it's just really, really important to summarize here as well is that TRAPIS is transferring onto any fabric,
Yeah,
whether it's polyester, a new biomaterial, a hemp, a silk, an organic cotton,
yeah,
whatever it is, really.
yeah,
It's crossing the entire supply chain, which is so, so interesting and so innovative, really.
yeah. No, I think what is honest to tell, if you look at the whole industry of sublimation,
Yeah.
that came a long way. It's been there
Yeah.
for years, but
Yeah.
the first dye sublimation printer was very expensive. The inks were very expensive. The material was very expensive. And now, if you look the price of a meter of a dye sublimation paper, it went really, really down.
Yeah.
So people are producing there. Now, TRAPIS is, you might find, production wise, it's a bit higher. Yeah,
Yeah.
the material is costing a little bit more at this moment, but what we don't know what it will happen next year and the year after when we
No.
have lots of installations.
But it's interesting, isn't it, Mark? Because it just comes back to what I said before. It's the right product for the right purpose. And
Yeah,
that's what TRAPIS is unlocking, really. It's adding another technology, another innovation to the arsenal of machinery. And then it's for the individual to look at their business plan, their business model, the
yeah.
markets they're interested in entering, and make those decisions themselves.
And I think what is good to mention here is also that a lot of people or companies that are in
Uh-huh.
in fast fashion, for example, that
Yeah.
market is going down. You
Yeah.
see, they have the quantities that they do are less than before.
Yeah.
So these kind of companies are looking to, okay, what other technologies are available? What can I do now? What does this bring for me? And of course, we see also with dye sublimation and polyester, the amount of materials that we can do nowadays. Some of the materials don't even look like a polyester, but are a
Absolutely.
polyester.
Yeah. Yeah.
So there's also a development in
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
in the in the whole fabric side.
Yeah, I
But
think in all of these channels there are new developments, and it's
yeah,
great. It's pushing the market, breaking boundaries, pushing the market further and further along to make the right environmental choice of print process for your product and your business model, really.
yeah.
So, so, so important. Mark, last question. Do you think that the TRAPIS then, do you think it marks an important step in the evolution of print process?
Well, I think if you look at the print process by itself,
Uh-huh.
that is not really an evolution because
Okay.
it's printing with a pigment ink, printing on a piece of paper. It is the whole chain that makes it an
Yeah.
evolution. So the printer with the pigment ink, the paper with the special coating on there, and then the calendar with the special pressure. to make the whole thing work, because
Yeah.
one doesn't work without the other.
Yep.
If I don't have that high-end pressure colander, it will not work. If I use dye sublimation paper instead of the Koldenhoven Texcool paper, it will not work.
No.
If I would use a different ink, it will not work.
Yeah. No
And
shortcuts. The right product for the right purpose.
exactly. So
Yeah.
in that way, it's the whole print process is not an evolution, but the whole uh, thing, what we can do with it, the
Yeah.
market, and
Yeah.
how we proceed it,
Yeah.
is an evolution.
Yeah. It's so exciting. It's really great.
It is. It is.
Yeah, I really look forward to watching how all of this develops and how the marketplace takes hold of it and explores the agility and efficiency of this
Yeah.
technology.
I think what we have seen so far is we've done a couple of trade shows, we've done open houses with
Uh-huh.
customers and things like that. The feedback from most of the customers were, "Oh, I didn't think it was so simple to produce this
Yeah.
actually, and
Yeah.
I thought I would have less quality compared to other technologies," and everybody was amazed about the quality,
Yeah.
and how simple it is to do it.
That's it, though, isn't it? Simplifying the process. Don't
Yeah,
don't regurgitate. Don't go back to the past and recreate it using an inkjet, an inkhead. Actually, rethink it. How do we make it more efficient and
yeah,
better for the planet, and also, with good profitability in there for the printer as well.
for sure. Yeah,
Anybody that's listening, I would definitely encourage you to find and source the TRAPIS technology wherever you are in the world. Really,
yeah,
having felt the handle and the print quality of these last October, it's huge steps, and really interesting color gamut, really interesting handle as well, really.
yeah. I think
Again, the right product for the right purpose, but it
yeah,
unlocks so many territories for a single printer with a single machine, doesn't it?
yeah. I totally agree, and also what you say, the color gamut.
Yeah.
But I think one of the user-friendly way, let's call it like that, is actually what you see is what you get almost.
Yes.
What you print is basically also what you get on your fabric,
Yeah.
and that is completely different with the dye sublimation, where you have to calendar it first before you see it, and here a customer sees it right away. Plus, I think when you look at cost-wise, the amount of ink reduction that we have, because we don't have to penetrate the material, but we're
Yes.
staying on top,
Yeah.
is like almost half of the amount of ink that we're using.
That's a
So that's also a big
considerable.
step.
That's a big considerable saving.
It is. It is.
Yeah, and I guess energy saving here too, because you're not pre-coating, not post-coating. Of
Yeah.
course, you've got the calendar. You're using energy in the ink.
Yeah.
The machinery is using a small amount of energy, but compared to analog production, it must be absolutely massive.
Yeah. Yeah. If you look at CO2 emissions, even compared with analog to digital, it's already a big step. We're just adding a little bit more to it.
Oh, that's great. Gosh, Marc, we could talk for hours. So much to explore here. Thank you so much for joining us today, and thank you for giving us a simple kind of roundup of the TRAPIS technology.
All right. Thank you very much.